2019 Student Government Presidential Debate. My name is Paul Graham, and I'll be the moderator for tonight. I work in the Student Organization Business Office, IMU, room 132. Now let's go ahead and meet the candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an introduction. We'll start with candidate Sanchez. We do have a mic.
Hello? Thank you, Mr. Graham, and everyone who's here. My name is Alexis Sanchez, and I'm thrilled to lead Inspire UI as presidential candidate. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to my family watching this at home. Los quiero mucho y muchas gracias por su apoyo. I want to thank the student body for engaging in this year's student government election process. Your contribution motivates our actions. Additionally, with your support, I'm hoping to have the opportunity to serve my 4th year in student government. During my time, I've had the privilege of serving as committee chair 2 out of the 3 years and have executed a multitude of initiatives to improve student life on campus. Inspire UI is a team of strong student leaders ready to serve the community. We value integrity, service, and empowerment, and we believe our platform reflects that. Student government has the opportunity to inspire in and out of the classroom, promote a healthy campus climate, and celebrate the diversity of our Hawkeye community. I'm not ready to be the voice of the student body. I'm ready to give the student body a voice.
Candidate Mills.
Good evening. Thank you for those joining us today, either in person or via the live stream, and thank you to everyone who helped organize this event. My name is Noelle Mills, and I'm a 3rd year student here studying environmental policy and planning and engaged social innovation. I've served in student government for the past 3 years in both senatorial and executive capacities. In my 3 years in student government, I've really seen what makes this organization work, what helps us make real positive change on campus. But I've also seen what holds us back. I'm here tonight because some of our peers are working 2 to 3 jobs just to pay for tuition and rent. I'm here because some of our peers are facing mental health crises and sexual assault and don't know where to turn. I'm here tonight because I believe that our student government can aim higher and do better. And I'm excited to show you tonight how Ignite Iowa plans on making that happen.
Candidate Mensuret.
Ooh, thank you both. Hello everyone, thank you all for being here tonight. It's great to see all these welcome faces here. My name is Dottie Mansory. I'm a 4th year student here at the University of Iowa, studying political science. And I decided to run for this position again because I'm frustrated with the direction of this organization. I'm frustrated that many students in this community do not know what student government is and is about. I'm frustrated that many students who do know about student government feel like this organization is divided and is elitist, and which is why for over the last year, I've made it my mission to take charge to ensure that all ideas and perspectives are brought to the table. And I hope come Wednesday and Thursday, you will stand alongside with us and take charge. Thank you.
Thank you for those introductions, and we will now move on to the debate questions, and we'll go over some formatting guidelines here. The debate time will be divided into 4 segments, each 20 minutes long, dictated by different themes of questions. The first candidate to speak is determined by reverse alphabetical order of last names. We will then rotate so that everyone will be able to answer a question first. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer the question. Everyone will have an opportunity to answer questions asked. You'll get a 5-second warning before time is up. And if your response refers to another candidate specifically, that candidate will be allowed a 30-second rebuttal. First segment of questions, experience and ideas. Candidate Sanchez will answer this question first. Candidate Sanchez, describe your top initiative that you would pursue if you were elected as UISG president.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So something that I would be very excited to promote next year would be to engage more inclusion on campus. Two really big ideas coming to mind. So one of them would be the expansion of the community ID program here in Johnson County and making sure that the city of Iowa City, along with the University of Iowa campus community, can contribute to those efforts. It's one of my favorite initiatives because it promotes a lot of marginalized communities that can benefit from that. Additionally, I would love to see the creation of the Latinx LLC, which I have already started conversations with Housing and Dining. So those two are just a few of the ideas that I have to promote inclusion here on campus.
Same question to candidate Mills.
Yeah, so this year I've had the pleasure of serving as Director of Finance for the University of Iowa Student Government. And in that capacity, I really have learned that what really creates good communication and transparency is showing up to student organization events, setting up one-on-ones, and really connecting with students to ensure that you're really representing them to the best of their ability. And this is all in an effort to increase transparency and communication with student government, because no student should feel like their student government is saying something that they don't feel is that they stand for. Everyone deserves to know what their representatives are doing. And so with the texting service, where you can sign up for personalized texts, where we're talking about health and safety initiatives, and you get a text saying, tonight in the Black Box Theater at 7 p.m., we're going to be talking about this, and we think you might be interested. If you have feedback, come and talk to us. Send it to us via text, email it to us. So being aggressively communicative with the student body and making sure that we're representing them adequately.
Candidate Mansouri.
Something I'm really, really excited. I don't know if some of you have had the pleasure of watching our campaign video. We plan to mimic the same thing to ensure that this community knows what student government is. I'm already in the works right now creating the next video, if you grant me the pleasure to be your next student by the president, to ensure that video is played everywhere, in the classroom, encouraging instructors, professors, TAs, whoever they are, that video is playing, encouraging members on Iowa to have that video show on Iowa, encouraging departments such as housing and dining, main library, TV, IMU. We want to make sure students know what student government is, and we can go about addressing all the issues that are concerned here for the community. Thank you.
Next question goes to candidate Mills first. What experiences uniquely qualify you for this position?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been in student government for 3 years now. My first year, I served as a first-year senator and really learned the ins and outs of Senate and what it's like to be a senator, and also what I want to see in a president and vice president and an executive cabinet as a senator. I tell the story all the time of my freshman year, the president that year, President Zuckerman, showed deep interest in the initiatives I was working on, and that made me want to work harder, and that inspired me to give my all to that initiative. Last year, I served as the Deputy Director of Finance, which is a 5-office-hour-a-week executive position. And so I got a little taste of the executive cabinet, but I was also heavily involved with Senate with the budgeting committee. And then this past year, I served as the Director of Finance, and I've communicated with many student organizations across campus regarding student government funding. And they've had lots of meaningful conversations about student government and how we can serve those student organizations better.
I believe what made me be, can you repeat that question, please? I'm sorry.
Sure. What experiences uniquely qualify you for this position?
I believe my experiences such as being heavily involved here on campus. I've been a part of many different student boards and departments. I'm currently a member of the Rugby Club. I've participated on Iowa. I've participated alongside with Alexius on the Homecoming Executive Council, but I participated as a volunteer leader. Just overall, my dedication to this community, my commitment, what has been through my fitness video that I create, I make it my mission to I make it my mission to get out of my comfort zone and meet new people, build our relationship, because that's what I want student government to be doing, be engaged in the community. Thank you.
Same question to candidate Sanchez.
Yeah, so like Noel mentioned, I had the opportunity to be in student government for 3 years now, which is really exciting. 2 of those years I've served in Senate leadership, being the Student Life Committee Chair, which has been a lot of fun. Additionally, with that though, I've been able to write legislation and pass funding for a variety of things, which just gives me an inside and outside look as to where money can definitely be used. Outside of student government, I've been a 2-year RA, which has been one of my favorite things on campus. And outside of that too, I've been a member of ANMA, Association of Latinos Moving Ahead. I've been in Executive Homecoming Council, running the parade, so one of the biggest events here on campus that does a lot of planning. And additionally, I've served on a variety of committees on campus when new people are being hired or there's different initiatives that the campus is targeting. Thank you.
We'll now move on to our next question in this segment. Presidents only serve 1-year terms. Candidate Monserrat, how do you plan to ensure the long-term sustainability of the initiatives you accomplish during your short tenure?
Great question. Something I'm looking forward to is ensuring that the cabinet is, the executive cabinet is working closely with the senators, to encouraging new members to be a part of the conversation. I want to leave behind a legacy that will encourage members, not just in student government, to be a part of the conversation. Encourage new members coming from the outside. I believe when I ran last year, it was more contested than it is now this year. And that's the legacy I want to leave behind, where everybody in this community feel like this organization is working for them and for everyone in this community. Thank you.
Same question goes to candidate Sanchez.
So something I try and do with every initiative that I work on in student government or outside of it with my other positions, I definitely focus on how we can institutionalize them, recognizing that our time here is so short, whether that is 1 year in the organization or 4 years here as a student. As committee chair, I try and do that with all of my committee members, so making sure that the initiatives that we are working on can be attached to a campus partner, whether that be a student organization, a campus organization, or a different department, making sure that they can be carried on even when I'm done with them too.
Candidate Mills.
Yeah, I love this question because it's something that we ask ourselves every year, is how we're going to make lasting and sustainable change on campus. And a lot of our initiatives last longer than a year. They take longer than a year. And so I would like to give a shout out to our current cabinet director, Kyle Shear, who has really been pushing our transition documents and our transition meetings, because that is going to be so huge for the next administration. That's going to be so huge for the future of our organization. Additionally, I've had the pleasure of serving on the strategic plan committee this year, where we have done a lot of long-term planning to make sure that the long-term health of our organization is going to stay strong. And so I think between transition documents, transition meetings, the continuation and implementation of the strategic plan, and aggressive communication with student organizations and campus partners will help us achieve long-lasting, sustainable change.
Last question in this segment. Candidate Sanchez will get to go first. The UI is currently working to fill administrative positions such as the Associate VP for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. When there is turnover in administrative leadership, how would you work to develop a relationship and open communication between the university administration and the student body?
Yeah, so when these searches are currently happening or they happen in the future, a really big factor that should always play a part of this process would be student voice. So inviting members, whether that's like members in student government or someone outside of it who can have personal interest in that, making sure that those students are part of the conversation. Additionally, we have this great thing in student government called open access, where a variety of campus partners or organizations organizations or even people can come in and talk about the variety of things that they're working on. So hopefully that can be a conversation that can be implemented right away, which I believe the institution has been doing a great job, but there's always room for improvement, especially when it means gathering more student voices in that conversation.
Candidate Mills?
So our relationships with administration are really the key factor that helps us have a voice on this campus, and the power of those relationships should not be taken lightly. And so I know I touched on transition documents before, but really that's where the information about who to meet with and when lives. And so in our transition documents for next year, we have items like, Director of Finance needs to meet with SOBO to discuss these things, and you need to be meeting by early May. And so being very detailed in who you need to meet with and when will be huge. Additionally, involving more student organizations than just student government in those meetings. When there's monthly meetings with the president, vice president, and Dr. Shivers, if we're talking about something related to mental health, let's invite Active Minds. If we're talking about something related to sustainability, let's invite folks from the Environmental Coalition. So really institutionalizing that relationship with more student organizations than just us, I think will be huge in ensuring those long-term relationships.
Good question to candidate
I'm
Mansouri.
sorry, can you please repeat that question?
No problem.
Yes.
The UI is currently working to fill administrative positions such as the Associate VP for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. When there is turnover in administrative leadership, how would you work to develop a relationship and open communication between the university administration and the student body?
Great question. Just like the two other candidates I've also mentioned, having those dialogues with community members is very important. Something I would like to see going forward is to encourage members that work on the communication team to have this information be on our website, so students, not only students or community members, are also knowing about what's happening. Because many times those conversations are happening, members in the community don't know much about it, except individuals like us in student government, and that's a problem. We need to foster that relationship and encourage new members, students, I would say, to be a part of those conversations as well. Thank you.
We're going to move on to our second segment. University topics, academics, engagement. Candidate Mills, what policies would you advocate for to improve student success at the University of Iowa, both within and beyond the classroom?
Great question. So I appreciate you including both in and outside the classroom, because if you don't feel happy, healthy, and safe, you're not going to be able to be academically successful. And so ensuring that students know how to receive mental health support, ensuring that they know the resources in order to help them feel safe on campus, really using our social media to boost the resources that already exist on our campus and working to strengthen those, and ensuring that students know about them. Moving into more specifically academics, for SI, it's very clear that that's an incredibly successful program, and so advocating to expand SI, especially into social sciences and upper level classes. Of course, there's issues with funding and all of that, but that's not a reason to end the conversation, I don't believe.
Same question to you, candidate Mansouri.
Yes, I would like to repeat that, please. Sorry.
What policies would you advocate for to improve student success at the University of Iowa, both within and beyond the classroom?
Great question. And Candidate Noel mentioned boosting some of the resources that we have available here for students. Something I would also like to see here happen here on campus is when we're talking about issues that students or issues that pertain to academics. Something I really want to do and start to foster is encouraging new members in the community to follow us when we're going to the state capitol and we're doing advocacy. Right now, it's just student government that is focused on those issues, and many community members don't know what we are doing. So each week, under myself and the leadership, we intend to have new members in the community, bring their ideas and perspective to the state capitol, so those individuals can hear what those members in the communities are going through and struggling. Thank you.
So one initial idea that popped into my head right away was improving implicit bias training for all faculty and staff. I know my partner, Madhuri, is very passionate about that, and that was one of the ideas that popped into our mind right away when we were creating the platform. But outside of that, even the simple change and improvement of desks, we've all had a situation where we have to like slide in front of someone to sit down. That's not accessible, and even it can be a minor thing for someone, it can be a big thing for someone else who faces accessibility issues here on campus. And then additionally, we've had conversations with Inspire UI regarding closed captioning in videos when you're taking online courses, or when your professor posts videos for your course that you have in person too. So improving little things like that can make a huge difference for a variety of students.
Candidate Mansouri will start this next question off. The 2018 congressional midterm elections were in November. Historically, turnout for people 18 to 29 in midterm elections is around 20%. What would you and your administration do to promote greater turnout and voter engagement among students at the University of Iowa?
Great question. That number needs to increase, that number needs to improve because student voice are very important. So something we want to also continue doing, which student government already does, is programs such as Hawkeye Caucus, encouraging new members to come in and share their voice and perspectives. We got my thoughts here. Ensuring that members in this community are really create an environment that encourages members in this community to really have their voice be heard. That's something that's not really happening right now. Encouraging them, like I've mentioned before, encouraging them to come with us to the state capitol and ensuring that those legislators are not limiting their access to cast their votes for individuals that they think should be in office.
Candidate Sanchez.
So a variety of ideas definitely come to mind regarding civic engagement and promoting those efforts. Being an RA, I've been able to work with not only first years, but also transfer students. And a lot of information can get lost when new people are finding a home here in Iowa City. So making sure that information can be processed and given to those new members of our community. Additionally, there's really exciting conversations regarding a potential civic engagement center here at Iowa, which is really exciting because one of our current senators is pushing a lot of efforts, so shout out to Jocelyn and everyone else contributing to that. Additionally, having really great relationships with our Iowa legislators whenever policies are being introduced that can affect college students and their potential to vote and information that changes, making sure that we are engaging with them and letting them know how they are going to be affecting us as college students, especially the communities that are tend to be marginalized when it comes to voting and all of that.
Yeah, so going off the Civic Engagement Center, we actually unanimously passed a recommendation to the Board of Regents to fund that for $45,000 for the next at least 3 years. So that's really exciting. The money's behind it. We're super excited. Going off excitement, I think getting students excited about civic engagement is huge. Utilizing our social media platform in order to run campaigns, getting students excited, making it cool, making them care, getting them to realize that they need to care. And then also, there's a really cool initiative that one of my friends brought to my attention, and that's continuing to push to get expiration dates on the Iowa One cards. Because if you have an expiration date on your Iowa One card, it can act as an official ID that can help you vote more easily. And so we think that would be huge in increasing voter turnout. So pushing for that will be big. And then with the theme of collaborating with student organizations more, working with them to get their members more engaged with civic engagement, I think will be really big.
Moving on to the next question, candidate Sanchez will answer this question first. More locally, one of the highest turnout rates for UISG elections was the competitive 2015 election at 30%. The that means that 70% of eligible students did not vote for the UISG leadership. If we assume you win the election by getting support from 60% of the highest percentage turnout of 30%, you would have been supported by 18% of the UI student body. Do you think this raises any questions about overall student support for your initiatives, and how can UISG promote greater student turnout in elections?
So that 30% is definitely a disappointing number. In our ideal world, we would want every student to be voting in these elections. We definitely promote the national ones because those are the ones with greater media and promotion, but it's all about local politics. I know there's a lot of work that student government members do regarding like city elections, but also student government plays a huge role. We allocate $1.8 billion approximately every year to a variety of initiatives and projects and resources. So making sure that those conversations are not just happening during campaign season, but also throughout the year. So a variety of initiatives that you're passionate about, they're being funded by us. Also additionally connecting students with student government regarding what we fund. I know something I try and do is connect non-student government members with initiatives that we're working on so they know where their money is going and promoting student government overall.
Same question goes to candidate Mills.
So sticking with the theme of having increased and better relationships with student organizations, I think what's going to be a big part, would be a big part of our administration is going to student organization events and saying, look, maybe you voted for us, maybe you didn't, but how are we going to work together this year to make sure that we serve you to the best of our ability? And I think that that's something that student government in the past has not done super well with. This year, in my role as Director of Finance, I've met with dozens of student organizations, asking them how we can serve them better, especially when it comes to funding. And so that has been very, very fruitful for us, and I would venture to say for them. And so increasing those partnerships, increasing those relationships, and ensuring that everyone feels represented by student government, so that when the time comes to vote again, they're excited and they're going to be engaged yet again.
Candidate Mansur.
Something I'm really excited of seeing is the better presence of this organization. Many times students feel like this organization is only important when election time comes around. So something I really want to see fostering this organization is to have a year-round engagement with the community. So students know what's happening in this organization and know how to be a part of it. So that's something I really want to see moving forward, to encourage that environment that will allow new conversation to be at the table, instead of the same old conversation always internally, but encouraging members outside of student government to be at the table as well. Thank you.
The next question will go back to candidate Mills. One of UI's strategic goals is to promote greater diversity on the UI campus. Diversity comes in many forms, including students from historically underrepresented groups, international students, and non-traditional students, to name a few. What one policy would you and your administration pursue to further this goal of advancing the UI strategic goal of diversity? And what plans do you have to increase support, funding, and visibility of TRIO?
Yeah, so I think it's important to first and foremost recognize the fact that my running mate and I are both white, able-bodied, cisgender women, and that's something that we recognize, but it's important for us to know that there's always room to learn and to grow, and that's going to be super important in an administration that claims to represent every Hawkeye. And so as far as a specific initiative to advance that goal, if you don't feel represented by your elected representatives, then I don't feel you can you're not going to feel like you belong here on campus. And so increasing communication between student government and the student body is going to be key to our administration. So like again, with those texting services, making sure that you know what your representatives are talking about. And if we're bringing up something that has something to do with your student organization in particular, let's reach out to you and let's make sure that you have a voice in that process.
Candidate answer it.
I'll say something I look forward with doing is creating a better relationship with departments such as CDE and also the other programs that we have here on campus on the west side, such as the cultural resource centers, to ensure that we are better promoting the resources and services that we have here for students. We're also encouraging more services for members in this community who feel that they are underrepresented here in this community. I truly care about this community, and I want to make sure under our mind and ideals leadership, these matters are being addressed. All ideas and perspectives need to be on the table. Thank you.
Candidate Sanchez.
So I previously mentioned the retention of faculty and staff of color. I'm very passionate about that, and I actually have had conversations with Dr. Shippers about this when the annual update of CDO happens. Additionally, I have had conversations with members from TRIO and the employees from CDE regarding this great program. I'm actually a TRIO member, so I directly benefit from all of the things that the program does, which many of you don't know about, but it's really exciting. There's a TRIO conference that happens, and they would love to see that be brought here to the university, so I think that would be a great initiative to contribute with Center for Diversity and Enrichment. Additionally, we bring in students of a variety of marginalized communities, but then the resources lack, and unfortunately our retention rates drop. One of them specifically being the first generation identity. I identify as first gen, so meaning I'm one of the first to attend college, so promoting those efforts here too.
Okay, we move on to our next segment. Candidate Mansouri will answer this question first. There are contentious issues facing the campus. The question is, across the nation, higher education institutions are struggling to navigate their commitments to free speech and an inclusive campus culture. How should UISG navigate this dynamic? What action should UISG take to uphold free speech and inclusion?
Great question. I think that personally, when those conversations are an issue in this community, we need to create an environment, a space where we are hearing all sides. You know, sometimes when we don't encourage those things, some messages can be taken out of context. So us as leaders of this community, us as leaders of student government need to create that space. Something I want to see is having bi-weekly town hall meetings where we are sitting with members of those organizations, members in this community who feel like their voice are not being heard, and we are having those dialogue and truly finding ways that we can solve those problems that we're having here on campus.
For free speech is a very important topic to discuss and not just throw under the rug, but there is a difference between free speech and hate speech. I've been a part of conversations where it has been productive and there has been disagreement, and that's totally okay, but you have to draw the line when there is harmful rhetoric and the conversation is not productive. Additionally, students should be a part of the conversations when workshops like white privilege and other factors like that are at the table to be dismantled or anything of that sort. Additionally, we should be promoting everyone's ideas, but also when others are being oppressed, that's when the conversation can turn, and those are the communities that we should be supporting.
So, of course, free speech is on the forefront of the national conversation when it comes to higher education, and so I'm glad that it came up tonight. We are a public university, and peaceful protest is allowed. However, there needs to be intentional, early, purposeful communication with any communities that could potentially be affected by any form of free speech protest on this campus. One idea that we threw around was having some sort of sign similar to the one that says "What floor?" that says, "Look, there's going to be something coming up on the TA and Cleary that you might find controversial. If you aren't in a space to handle this today, you might want to think about taking an alternate route to offer students the ability to either engage or not." Additionally, we need to ask ourselves how we are preparing our students to engage in meaningful dialogue when it comes to contentious issues. So what are we doing in our rhetoric classes? What are we doing during orientation to prepare students for those situations?
We'll go back to candidate Sanchez for this next question. This is a two-part question. The first is general. What role can UISG play in improving education and preparedness for violent incidents on campus? The second part is more specific. What ideas do you have to improve the current operating system?
So, like I mentioned before, I've had the opportunity to be a resident assistant for 2 years now, and unfortunately part of that job requires acting when incidents do happen in the residence halls. Unfortunately, on Saturday, I faced that issue of having to react to a violent issue, which I won't get into the details of, but something that I was very thankful that I had was the information for resources. So when issues like that do happen, I think it's important that students have that information ready to go so they can share that with others. So with themselves, if they need it, they have it, or if they need to share with a friend right away, they have that opportunity. When it comes to the Hawk Alert, it's a very touchy subject, but it's something that the students always bring up is that we have a Hawk Alert and we never know what happens after. So there's always the issue of the lingering conversation of what is happening now. Did it get controlled, or was there anything to wrap it up?
Candidate Mills.
So unfortunately, violent instances on college campuses is something that we have to talk about. And it's unfortunate, but it's our role as student government to make sure that Hawkeyes are prepared and able to face those situations and stay safe. And so we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing in our required classes, like rhetoric and interpretations of literature, and other classes, and orientation, success at Iowa? What are we doing in those spaces to get across the communication of how to properly respond in a violent incident? And then also utilizing our social media, with the student government social media, utilizing our platform to launch a campaign about how to react in a violent situation, how to prevent those situations if possible. Moving into Hawk Alert, I agree that there is little to no follow-up when we do get Hawk Alerts, but I think student government can easily step into that and take charge and make sure that students are aware of what happened, what the protocol is, and how they can find resources that they might need.
Would you please repeat that question for us?
So this first question is general. What role can student government UISG play in improving education and preparedness for violent incidents on campus? And the second question is more specific. What ideas do you have to improve the current Hawk Alert system?
I think a way that we can do to improve some of those violence incidents here that are happening here on campus is working closely with departments such as RAP, Monsoon, and so on, to ensure that we have good relationship with them, and we have good relationship with them, and also encouraging new students to be a part of the table, be a part of the conversation. Because right now things are happening, members in this community don't know how they are being handled. And to move on to the Hawk Alert, in support of what these two candidates have also mentioned, some things are happening, members in the community also don't know what's going on, and student government needs to be at the forefront, ensuring that we are working closely with administration to let the student body know what is going on and how those issues are being addressed.
We'll go back to candidate Mills for this next question. University of Iowa has a comprehensive alcohol harm reduction plan with extensive student involvement. Please share any data of which you are aware, and please share how you and your administration will help advance the university's alcohol harm reduction plan.
I think it's important, as far as data goes, to look at the communities that are most at risk. So involving our fraternity and sorority-led communities. I'm a proud member of Delta Zeta sorority. I've been in there for 3 years and have seen the trajectory of how alcohol harm reduction is handled in the FSL community. I think students need to be at the table when we're having these conversations. And so involving those at-risk communities and explaining to them if action's being taken, why it's being taken, instead of just doing it. And yes, besides FSL, of course, there are sports groups and other communities like that. I think involving them, explaining why it's important and working with them to find solutions instead of just assuming that administration knows the answers.
Candidate Mansouri.
Great question. Again, the what Noah have mentioned, encouraging members of the community to be a part of the table. Something else I would like to see is to encourage the university to take step with encouraging all students to take part in the CPR certification, which is basically if members in the community ever face that experience, you have someone in the community that can be able to lend a helping hand moving forward. Thank you.
University of Iowa has a comprehensive alcohol harm reduction plan with extensive student involvement. Please share any data of which you are aware, and please share how you and your administration will help advance the university's alcohol harm reduction plan.
So I believe it was my first year in student government. We had someone from administration come speak at student government senate meeting. And I can't remember the exact number, but it was a very high statistic regarding how students felt and the pressure to drink their first year on campus. It was extremely disappointing that many found that drinking was the only alternative that they had when it came to like weekends and what to do off campus. I had the opportunity to be in campus activities board for 2 years in a row, where we served and provided events both during the week and on weekends that gave students an option to hang out and not be around that. Additionally, partnerships with Iowa City Downtown District, they do a lot of great work and making sure that we are collaborating as a campus community, but also student government can carry those and bridge those conversations. And lastly, there's a lot of really great conversations regarding medical amnesty, so making sure that that is being pushed for, not only here, but also with our legislators, so we have a training incentive for everyone too.
Back to candidate Mansouri for this next question. How can you and your administration work to improve the campus climate surrounding sexual misconduct?
Yes, great question. Like I mentioned earlier before, working with departments such as RVAP, RAC, Monsoon, having those strong relationship, but also as well encouraging new students to be a part of the table, be a part of the conversation, because those are issues that are happening here many times, and those issues need to be addressed, and we need to be at the forefront. Student government needs to be at the forefront, working with those campus partners. Thank you.
One thing that I would definitely promote would be the expansion of trainings. Specifically, RAC and other departments around the Iowa City community have large opportunities for students to be engaged and work with those directly. Some people from Inspire UI work with RAC or the Crisis Center, which bring in direct actions that they can promote not only through like their jobs, but also promote causes and advocate for a variety of issues. Additionally, I just saw on social media that members of RAG are promoting an awareness week. I believe it's about sexual violence. So connecting students with all of those conversations and not just ending there, but giving the tools to students, that way they have what they need to take action additionally too.
So my answer to this question is really threefold. The first thing is advocating at the state level to encourage and promote K through 12 consent education, because starting the conversation early is going to help. Is going to go a long way when students get to college. Second part is educating students as soon as they hit the campus. I think we already do a pretty decent job with this, but there's always room to improve. In an area that is as serious as this, we can never stop improving. So educating students on what sexual assault is, how to prevent it, and then how to report it if, God forbid, it happens, is going to be key. The third thing is when students report it, they should never, ever, ever be faced with a student, staff, or faculty member who doesn't know what to do and doesn't do anything, because that's just completely unacceptable to me. And so preparing student, staff, and faculty to be able to handle those reports and having a comprehensive plan for when that happens is going to be big.
We now move into our fourth and final segment, affordability and appropriations. Candidate Sanchez will throw this first question to you. All of you include college affordability in your platform. One way to promote affordability is to increase the percentage of university revenue from state appropriations so tuition and fees are not the majority of the revenue. Imagine you have 1 minute of the governor's time. Make your best case for why there should be a significant increase in state appropriations to the University of Iowa. You have 60 seconds. Please begin.
Getting a higher education is not only a great opportunity, but it's something that should be accessible to everyone that is interested in pursuing that avenue. By the decrease in funds that we get from state appropriation, it only makes it that much harder for students to receive an education that they want to pursue. And further, it harms marginalized communities who already did not even believe that college was an opportunity. I'm a first-generation student, so I didn't entertain the idea of going to college until my senior year because it wasn't promoted to me directly. That unfortunately happens to so many people around me, and that conversation is not talked about as much as it should be. Promotion of scholarships can only go so far. It's what matters when it comes to funding from the state, and that's where we believe that our student government can definitely promote those efforts, but our state should also be promoting us to attend higher education. Thank you.
Same question to candidate Mills.
Hi, Governor Reynolds. If you didn't already know, University of Iowa is the #1 employer in the state. And so this is not just about education. This is about jobs, this is about research, this is about economic development, and this is about our reputation in the country. Additionally, we talk about all the time of brain drain in rural Iowa, and students come from Chicago and then they leave, and students come from Iowa and they leave. And how do we get students to stay here? If we invest more heavily in our state schools, perhaps they will.
Receiving a college education is a right, not a privilege. Governor Reynolds, the students here at the University of Iowa have been struggling. It has been an issue for the last couple of years. We have been receiving state cuts, and these cuts have not been beneficial to members of this community. I personally come from a background that every day, essentially, I am working hard to pay for my own school. I don't receive any scholarship from the university. Everything is coming out of pocket. Or I'm receiving or taking out many loans. This is an issue, and I highly encourage you to take a step back and understand the harms that you're causing to members in this community. Thank you.
Next question goes back to Senator Mills. Beyond the governor, how would you and your administration engage the state legislature, or more broadly, generate support for an increase in state appropriations?
For doing an amazing job of hosting weekly trips to the Capitol while the legislature was in session. We got to go last Tuesday. It was super fun, and I felt very engaged because I was invited to go to the state capitol, but unfortunately I probably wouldn't have been invited had I not already been a member of student government. And so I think it's really critical to reach out to our student organization leaders and engage them, because in student government we don't have every Hawkeye experience. But if we reach out to other Hawkeyes and say, hey, we're going to the Capitol, we'd love for you to come, we'd love for you to build up a relationship with your legislator to improve those relationships and improve the general sense of community within the state between the legislators and our university, I think that's going to be huge.
Please repeat the question.
Sure. Beyond the governor, how would you and your administration engage the state legislature, or more broadly, generate support for an increase in state appropriations?
Great question, and I even touched base on this earlier. I believe right now this is a conversation that's only being advocated for by members of student government. Imagine you are a state legislator and you are the individual who are making those cuts, and you're having the same old individuals come to you over and over and over again, repeating the same rhetoric. I believe if I was that individual, I would be tired of that same individual coming saying those things to me. I believe we need to spark a new conversation where we include members in this community, and they're coming along with us and they're sharing their story, sharing why it is important that the state legislators are increasing our funding. Thank you.
Senator Sanchez.
Yeah, so not to repeat the comments that Noel and Dottie have mentioned, but definitely encourage the strong relationships that we have with legislators when we go to the Capitol. Madhuri and I had the opportunity to go together a couple of weeks ago to interact with them, and we actually got to talk to a lot of really cool people and promoting a variety of initiatives. Sadly, Connor wasn't there that time. But aside from that, instead of us going there every week, we can have them come to us. A really great thing that we've done in the past was invite Board of Regents, who definitely are the ones that look into what funding goes in and out of our institution. They can hear our personal stories and our personal achievements that they are deciding to invest on or not invest on, making our narratives personal so they recognize where their money is going and where it's not going.
Many UI students live off campus. What are the primary issues faced by these students? And what could you and your administration do to realistically help these students address these issues?
Great question. Some of my close friends here on campus, many of them live off campus, and many of the things that they talk about is the issues such as the leasing gap, or issues such as the leasing gap. I believe it's very vital that those things are no longer a concern, that we are working closely with our campus partners to ensure that they're not putting students in difficult situations that they cannot get out of. Thank you.
So two really big things come to mind. The promotion of the checklist conversation that Connor Wolf has worked really hard on, and additionally promoting the renter's guide that student government has executed really great. It has a lot of room for improvement and more information. That way when students are in the conversation of deciding where to live off campus, they can get the most information as possible when making those really big financial decisions. Additionally, there's other ways that we can promote affordability. Some examples would be the creation and the expansion of the food pantry here in Iowa. Food is expensive, and we all know that, and if you don't have a meal plan, you have to find other ways to feed yourself and your roommates. Additionally, the expansion of the clothing drive so people can afford professional clothing if they don't have that opportunity currently. And lastly, the promotion of the textbook drive that Goey from Inspire UI has worked a lot on this year.
Issues with off-campus student support is one of the main reasons why I knew I had to run for president. My roommates and I, during the typical school year, work 30, 40 hours a week just to make ends meet. We donate plasma and we sell our clothes just to pay rent. And though the faces of my roommates, that's really what has driven me to run. So I have plenty of ideas about this. Promoting resources on campus that already exist to our off-campus students through the Neighborhood Ambassador Program. This is a program that was launched this past year, and we gave it funding support from student government, but I think we really need to take a hard look at that program and see how we can improve it and improve our connection to off-campus students, because if they don't feel connected to campus, if they're working 40 plus hours a week at IV, they're like, that's when mental health decreases, that's when dropout rates increase, and that's where we see issues. So improving the Neighborhood Ambassador Program and working, just increase communication.
This leads us right into our final question of the evening. We'll start with candidate Sanchez. What ideas do you have that you have not already discussed that you believe UISG could do to help students who are faced with the decision of either working or attending the university?
So I believe I brought up a variety of initiatives to execute for affordability issues. Personally, if it weren't for my resident assistant job, I would very much struggle a lot more to afford college, which is unfortunately a common thread amongst a variety of students. A really great idea that we have that we've talked about with Inspire UI is decreasing the cost of graduation. So you pay 4 years to get that diploma, and then at the end you have to pay a lot more to get out. So making sure that we are able to subsidize those issues. But more in the macro level, promoting the conversation with state legislators and increasing the funding for it too. And lastly, making sure that we are looking at what we're doing internally with student government. Since everyone does pay into the student activity fee, we should be executing initiatives that the students care about and that they are going to be needing in the future.
I think the partnership that we have lacked in student government in the past is with our recruitment team at this university. And I think working with them to ensure that they are discussing topics of affordability when they go to high schools to speak, when they host recruitment events, that's going to be super critical, because if students don't feel like they're going to be able to afford the Hawkeye experience, they're going to choose to work instead. So I think promoting our affordability, our options to improve affordability on campus, letting them know that we do have lots of options, especially when it comes to resources like the food pantry and the clothing closet, and then the continuing partnerships with the Iowa City Council to let them know that students don't necessarily need these big, luxurious apartment complexes going up. Perhaps they need something more affordable. And to kind of end that stigma around Iowa City being super expensive, and kind of changing the culture around that.
Candidate Mentor.
Could you please repeat that question?
Sure. What ideas do you have that you have not already discussed that you believe UISG could do to help students who are faced with the decision of either working or attending the university?
Yes, thank you. Great question. Something that both candidates have mentioned here about, I believe, food insecurity. I believe it's important that we are expanding the Hawkeye Meal Program, the food pantry in Iowa, and other resources that are helping students here in the community. Also, something I want to implement here is the to-go box pilot program, something that will help with the university wastefulness in the dining halls to encourage the university to give those food to students who truly needs it here in this community. Right now, all those food are just going to waste. So that's something I really want to see implemented that can help members, especially those who are working and don't have food, access of food and things like that here on campus. Thank you.
Now that concludes our debate questions portion, and now we move into our closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. Candidate Sanchez, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Bram, Noel, Dottie, and everyone for being here today. Campaign season is tough. Anyone who's experienced it knows that. Sometimes it's hard to remember why we put ourselves through so much for an unconfirmed position in an organization that has a lot of work to do. But all of the interactions, smiles, and hugs over the last week have reaffirmed my reason for running. These small moments are the ones that re-energize my conviction and our mission. I come from a low-income, first-generation immigrant household. I've lived through struggles that many folks can relate to, but often aren't recognized. We have the opportunity to elevate those experiences and identities, and I vow to carry those connections with me every step of the way. Madhuri and I are the first women of color executive team to run in the last 15 years, but electing us isn't the end. Representation means leadership that amplifies the voices of who, like us, have struggled to be heard. Vote for leaders who listen to you, collaborate with you, and work for you. Vote Inspire UI. Thank you.
Candidate Mills, your closing statement.
So who we are and what we stand for can be heard in our name, Ignite Iowa. We're ready to create positive, meaningful, intentional, lasting change on this campus. We know that we must listen to student voices and include them in our work from the beginning to achieve our goals. It's time that student government starts igniting transparency through text messages and attending student organizations and showing up to campus events. It's time that we take a look at our advocacy efforts at the state level to see if what we're doing is really working, if our appropriations continue to be slashed. And it's time for us to work harder to ensure that no Hawkeye has to wonder where the next meal will come from or how they're going to pay rent in the next month. At Ignite Iowa, we're excited to create meaningful, lasting change through financial, social, and environmental sustainability, and we can do it together. Please vote April 3rd and 4th for Ignite Iowa.
Candidate Mansoray, your closing statement.
Yes, I'd like to first thank Dr. Brown for moderating this debate, and thank all the candidates here on the podium, and especially thank you all, the audience out there, in here, online. I believe that we can be better, and it is our responsibility to do better. And I hope come April 3rd and 4th, which is Wednesday and Thursday, you will step up and take charge. Thank you.
This concludes the 2019 Student Government Presidential Debate. We appreciate your attendance and engagement. Thank you for coming.